For those of you who don't know me, I'm Linda Robertson. Welcome to those who are parents and those who are not. I am going to be speaking from a parent's point of view, but also know that everything I'm going to share about how I lost connection with my son Ryan and how I've lost connection and harmed connection with my other kids, it applies to all human relationships. So you may have to do a little tricky work in your own brain to convert it, but they're all principles that go for any kind of relationship where you want to nurture a deep, safe, emotionally connected relationship. So how many of you are familiar with, well, is there anybody that's not familiar with our family story? Okay, a couple of you. All right, so a lot of you are, but if you're not, here is the short but not so sweet version. Our son Ryan, who was the second child of 4 kids, born really close together, direct messaged me when he was 12 and came out as gay. We responded the way that most evangelical parents responded back then, and sadly, too often today, by saying, we love you, but you can't embrace your sexuality. And Ryan, as a kid who desperately wanted to please God, did what countless LGBTQ Christians have done. He begged God to change him, went to biblical counseling, and got involved with Exodus. All along, though, he was depressed and often suicidal. At the age of 18, he ended up on the streets, turning to drugs to heal his pain. He died a death of despair when he was only 20 years old, and our lives have never been the same. Oof. Sounds awful, and it was. And in so many ways, it still is. In the 13 years since his death, I have gained, through over 10 years of incredible therapy, lots of informal psychological training, and years of reading and self-reflection, so many insights into how I lost connection with Ryan. I've been able to figure out so much about what went so very wrong, why I couldn't really empathize with my son, and why I instead became gripped with fear, unaware of the way I was harming the precious bond that existed between us for the first 12 years of his life. I've also been able to see how the parenting strategies I used with Ryan also wounded our other kids and continued to be obstacles to building the kind of secure, emotionally intimate attachment that I desired with them. I'd like to share some of the ways I lost connection with Ryan and to use them as a basis for the next hour and a half that we have together. I'm going to try to allow as much discussion and feedback as we can do. So, and I don't think I told you this since I'm a little bit nervous. I've never done this presentation before. Those of you who have heard me speak know that I usually share a more in-depth version of our story and the way that God showed up in amazing ways in our story, and how we learned how to truly love our son unconditionally. But this is all new, so you guys are my guinea pigs. So I'm gonna ask for your grace as I figure this out. It may not work. So I am gonna just try it out on you and we'll see how it goes. The number one, I'm gonna start out by telling you this. I lost connection with Ryan because I was so focused on my own strong emotions and my own experiences that I forgot how to actually be his safe person. He was in distress, and I left him alone in it. The incredible child psychologist, Dr. Becky Kennedy, teaches parents of littles that children can handle distress. They can get through hard things. They are naturally resilient and resourceful. They can figure out strategies to handle all kinds of painful experiences. But what causes the most pain and long-term impacts for them is the experience of being alone in their distress. She also says it this way: we can't do anything about the hard, but we can do something about the alone. I want to repeat that, but I'm going to replace children with LGBTQ kids of any age. LGBTQ kids can handle distress. They can get through hard things. They are naturally resilient and resourceful. They can figure out strategies to handle all kinds of painful experiences. But what causes the most pain and long-term impacts for them is the experience of being alone in their distress. They need to know that their families will always be in their corner, ready to listen with truly unconditional love, trusting them and believing in their innate goodness, wisdom, and insight, especially when they are doubting themselves. I want to pause for a second because I know there are people from the community here, and some of you may never have parents who see you as innately good and who are able to really see you and validate you and empathize with you. And I want to acknowledge that and grieve with you in that. And I know, because of getting to know you and hearing your stories, that many of you will do that for other people. Many of you will be safe people for your partners. You'll be, if you choose to have families, you'll be safe for them. You'll be safe for other people's children. You will be safe. You will break the cycle of this. And so I just want you to know, I know and I see you that many of you will never be seen and validated by your families, and that matters a lot. And it's a grief that I don't think we ever get over grieving at some level. So back to being safe people. Okay, I want you all to close your eyes for a moment. Thank you. Oh, bless you, Bobby. Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Think of the person in your life with whom you feel the safest. Imagine that person loving you endlessly. Come over, if you guys don't mind, come over and join us close so that I can see y'all. Thanks. So imagine the person loving you endlessly, not critical, not judging, simply cheering you on, trusting that your heart is always good, believing that you are doing your best, not offering unsolicited advice, not trying to fix your problem, listening as long as you need to feel understood. So imagine that. Take a minute and get that person in your mind. Someone who is your biggest fan. This person would never say, "I told you so," or "if you just listen to us," or roll their eyes when you share a new idea. Imagine this person, real or imagined, to whom you can tell literally anything, knowing that you won't be judged or evaluated. I call this person my safe harbor person, the person who I can go to in the wild throes of any storm, no matter how harrowing or how badly I've been steering my ship. And they will welcome me to safety with nothing but love. Okay, open your eyes. I'd love some feedback. What emotions are you feeling right now as you think of that safe person? A few of you, give me one or two words to express the feeling. Relief. Thank you, relief. Love. Say it again. Together. Together. You're not alone. You're together. Ooh, peace. Yes. It's like the opposite of anxiety. Deep peace. I think for many of you, this may be or may not be similar to how you imagine that Christ, the God who is the literal embodiment of unconditional love, sees you and loves you. For some of us, The God that we were taught to believe as children was not this safe harbor, didn't relentlessly love us in that way. And there are some of us that did have that safe harbor, Christ. They were taught about that. Some of us, we didn't have that. And we're all having to unlearn that. We were created for this kind of experience. In fact, interpersonal biologists and psychologists tell us that as infants and small children, whether or not we experience this kind of secure attachment, where we are deeply seen, safe, and soothed, shows up in our thoughts and behaviors every day for the rest of our lives. God created us to need connection, to yearn for it. We all want to have parents, or we all want to have someone who will fully know us, fully see us, and always, always, no matter what, fully love us. We as parents are intended to be a reflection of God's divine love for us to our children from the very first moments of their lives. After Ryan came out, this is what I forgot. Not just with him, but with my other kids. In my Wednesday WDIG virtual group, we always talk about the big idea for the week. Here's ours for today's session. We can unintentionally harm deep connection with our kids because we get so overwhelmed by our own emotions and our own experiences that we forget how to be their safe people. And in doing so, we too often leave them alone in their pain and distress. And truly, many of us do this a lot. It isn't that we're bad parents, quite the opposite. We love our kids like crazy and we're doing our best. But sometimes we get so flooded by our own emotions that there isn't much room left for self-awareness and self-reflection. And we accidentally make our kids' challenges about us, all about us. So I'm going to read our big idea again. We can unintentionally harm deep connection with our kids because we get so overwhelmed by our own emotions and our own experiences that we forget how to be their safe people. And in doing so, we too often leave them alone in their pain and distress. So, what does that mean? Let's stop and think about the times we've all felt alone in our distress. When we felt misunderstood, not listened to, and frankly, kind of rejected. What does it feel like when, I want you to tune into your own experience. So what does it feel like when we're feeling scared and overwhelmed, and the person we reach out to just doesn't seem to get it? So how many of you can think of a time where the person you were hoping to get it just didn't, and you were left feeling worse than before you reached out? How many of you have experienced that? Yeah, it's a common experience, right? And think about those times and see if you can name the feeling or feelings that came up for you. Does anybody want to shout out an emotion that came up? If you can think about that. Devastation, absolutely. Rejection. Misunderstood. My therapist friend Margie says that being misunderstood is one of the most painful experiences that a human can go through. Feeling misunderstood, mischaracterized. Anybody else? Bad. Oh yeah, it feels really bad. So, can you imagine for a second? Now we're going to take this, so we're mentalizing ourselves when we do that exercise. We're thinking about our own experience. So I want to also flip it and say, can we imagine for a minute what the people that shut us down, who didn't provide the kind of support we needed, were feeling? Like what emotions, let's just imagine, what kind of emotions, I know I've done this to people, so what kind of emotions might have been coming up for them? Uncomfortable. Fear. Absolutely. Confusion. Oh, helplessness. And I'm especially asking this for parents. I don't want to imply that community members really, I think community members usually do a lot of mentalizing of what's going on for their parents. So I'm really leaning into those that are parents here, that we're thinking about when we shut our kids down, what is going on for us? When other people shut us down, what might be going on for them? Because I want us to hold on to these emotions, because I do want to switch perspectives and think about how we as parents or we in relationships can cause the same feeling for our kids or our partners when they come to us in pain, anger, frustration, and disappointment. And we respond out of our own discomfort, defensiveness, fear, and anxiety, instead of being what I like to call safe harbor parents. So I'm going to share 5 of the ways that I left my children alone in their distress. And I'd love for you to consider whether you've ever done this with your kids or with your partner. This isn't about being affirming or non-affirming, because becoming affirming doesn't guarantee that we'll magically transform into the kind of parents our kids will be able to trust completely in their messiest moments. We can all leave the people we love the most alone in their distress at times. So the first way I did this was I forgot that Ryan already knew very well what we believed, and he didn't need to hear it again, not even once. Instead, he needed to know that we believed in him. So Ryan, like your kids, was really smart. Before he came out, he had spent a great deal of time thinking about and researching what the Bible had to say about LGBTQ people. Ryan, like most queer Christian kids, thought his very eternity depended on it. And he definitely knew all about what we believed. One lesbian couple I'm close to told me that their parents keep reminding them every time they talk to them of what they believe. And they always feel like saying, Mom and Dad, we lived with you for 20 years. You told us in so many different ways what you believe. We could tell you what you believe. And I'm sure that those of you who are in the community here probably relate to that. And those of us who are, all of us, I think, are children here, we can probably we kind of know what our parents' values are. We know what is important to them. We know what they believe. So this is so easy to do. So take this example with our 32-year-old that happened right before Christmas. He's very capable and confident son, and this happened during one of Seattle's recent snowstorms.
I'm playing
Yep.
Riley.
So this is my son, Riley.
I just had to drive over to the grocery store, and the road between here and home was crazy slick.
Ooh, yikes.
Might just be my car, but I'm having to go super slow and not slip.
Rob, you can read this if you want. I'm gonna channel my husband. Be careful, with his permission. Be careful. Slower is safer when temperatures are flirting with that freezing point. Snowing, sleeting, raining, back and forth. Accidents can happen so fast. Did Riley already know that not so helpful, not so new information? Absolutely. How many times do you think Riley has heard about snow driving from Rob and I? A few. Just guess, a few. Because Seattle drivers, we're not good in the snow. So when it does snow, yeah, we're the people, all you people in the Northeast and the Midwest are like, what are you thinking? Yeah, yes. How many of you think that Riley felt like we thought that he was an actually capable and competent driver? Do you think he felt capable and competent, that we thought that when we were giving him advice? No. How many of you think that we were treating him like a new snow driver? Right? So back to Ryan and my first point, I left Ryan alone in his distress by telling him all the things he already knew that I believed, instead of simply listening to and learning from his experience. Since I was the one that he had chosen to confide in, that meant he had nobody to really process his thoughts with. Have any of you parents ever fallen into this, giving your children advice that they probably already know? This mistake did the opposite of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the person who Ryan came to when he was struggling. My next big mistake was this. I tried to manage my overwhelming emotions and my own discomfort with the situation by solving or fixing the problem. I convinced myself that I was just trying to help, but I wasn't helping at all. I was talking down to him, giving him loads of unsolicited advice, and completely ignoring his own emotions. For me, it too often went like this.
Mom, I know what the Bible says. I feel so confused about what I know about myself and what God says about this.
Well, this is going to be hard, but discipleship is hard. You can't trust your emotions with this, Ryan. You do know what the Bible says, and I will keep reminding you about that. I will be praying that you'll have the strength to do the right thing, and no matter what happens, you just have to stay close to Jesus. As long as you don't walk away from him, you'll be okay. We'll get you a new Bible, and I'll find you a bunch of resources that will encourage you to keep obeying God's word.
Okay. I guess you're right.
Okay, think about that. Let's do some quick popcorn answers. If you had been Ryan, what would you have felt? Unseen? Unheard? Shut down? Invalidated? Judged? What'd you say, Josh? Helpless. Ooh. Ooh, alone? I'd venture a guess that none of those are helpful things in creating the kind of secure connection I wanted to do with Ryan. I know I'm not the only one who has responded like this. Why do we do this? Raise of hands. Have your own parents ever acted like they knew exactly what you should do, how you should handle a situation? Yeah, Sean, if you've had parents act like they know what you should do, yeah, we all get that feeling too, right? Does it make you feel more connected to them? Mm-mm. Does it make you feel deeply loved by them? No, it doesn't. It doesn't work that way for anyone. As much as we parents want to tell ourselves that it's our right as parents, it doesn't. Not only did I forget that, but I was also assuming that I knew better than Ryan did what was right, what he should do, and what the end goal was. I left Ryan alone in his distress by taking over the conversation, shutting down his sharing by trying to solve and fix the situation, rather than simply listening well and supporting him in coming to his own conclusion, which is the way that the best teachers, therapists, and trainers help people learn. Okay, number 3. The third thing I did to harm connection with my son was this. I tried to manage my own overwhelming emotions by controlling my child. So tell me, how do you guys feel when someone else is trying to control you by communicating either overtly or with not so subtle hints at what they think you should do? Manipulated. Ooh. Angry. I'm going to do the opposite. Rebellion. Do the opposite. Anybody else out there? Ooh, not trustworthy. Does it make you feel empowered? Does it make you feel trusted and good about yourself? How about loved and safe when someone is trying to control? It doesn't. And I can fall into this big time with my favorite person in the whole world, sitting right down there, Rob. We've been married, we're kind of come up on 40 years, and I still do this, and every time he tells me, this doesn't make me feel good about myself. I still do this. And so I'm working on it. I'm working on it because it doesn't make Rob feel good about himself. It doesn't make my kids feel good about themselves. It doesn't make them feel trusted. So why do we do it? Because when someone tries to control me, it makes me want to do the opposite. I think that I do it a lot because it is my way of managing my anxiety. When I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling afraid, the first thing I can go to if I'm not being mindful is to control. It doesn't actually make my anxiety any better, but it is our brain's natural way, unless we're being mindful and we're intentionally working to do something else. So one of the things I just noticed last year, so Rob has had a really brutal year with PTSD after retiring from the fire service, 40 years in the fire service. And so I have been doing a lot of things on my own. And he's been teaching me how to chop wood and how we live in the middle of a forest. We're really privileged to have a home in a forest. And so a home in the forest in the Pacific Northwest means you have to blow your roof. It's just kind of a given. So he has taught me how to get up on the roof with the gas blower and blow our roof. And I am pretty doggone proud of myself at almost 60 doing this. So I was out there one day and I was getting the backpack on and the blower and I had all my gear and my grippy shoes and my mom called. So before I get up there and I'm ready to climb on the roof and my mom's like wanting to talk. And so I told her, hey Mom, I'm gonna have to call you back. I'm getting ready to blow the roof. And I bet you can guess what's happening, right? My mom says, oh, be so careful. I don't think you should do that. You're gonna fall. Be careful, you might fall. Like, I'm not so sure you should do that. So she's giving me all kinds of cautions. How do you think it made me feel? I just wanted to get up on that damn roof. I was more determined to get up on the roof. I felt like I was 14 again. I wanted to get up on the roof. I'm like, I don't need you to coach me. I am almost 60 years old. I'm in better shape than I have been in my life. I'm gonna get up on the roof. And it really made me want to go on the steeper part of the roof than I actually have ever gone on because I felt rebellious. I didn't want to be controlled by my mom as an adult. So I want us to think about that. That is a natural instinct. It's a human instinct when people try to control us. But when Ryan came out, I totally forgot this. I didn't remember how destructive control is in any relationship. Instead, I tried to make my own fear go away by trying to control his own thoughts about his sexuality, his adolescent social life, his internet use, his exposure to anything I found threatening. I also even attempted to control his spiritual life by casually arranging for him to be at youth group activities. At every possibility, I arranged for meetings with his cool youth pastor. I lectured him about spiritual things rather than listening. And I argued against any perspective that didn't align with my own theology. Yep, I was that mom. Not only were my attempts counterproductive, but Ryan felt abandoned. He no longer had me, who used to be a safe person, to listen to him as he worked through his questions, fear, and doubts. I left Ryan alone in his distress by opting to try to control rather than actually working to process and regulate my own emotions. I wasn't being curious about why I was so afraid. I was just trying to make my own anxiety stop. And the way I tried to make it stop was to control my child. So here is what I'm calling a bonus lesson from the Control Center. And it is thanks to Dr. Becky and some of the things that I have learned from her. We can't truly connect with someone that we are trying to control. We can't truly connect with someone that we are trying to control. We only try to control people who we don't trust to manage things themselves. I'm going to read that again. We only try to control people who we don't trust to manage things themselves. And nobody feels connected to someone who doesn't trust them. So, speaking to the parents here, we are all super loving parents with the best of intentions. That is just true. And yet, have you ever responded to your own anxieties and fears by trying to control situations with your kids? Some of you are thinking, no, I never try to control anyone else. That's not me. I just don't do that. And believe it or not, I would have said that. But we can do it in such sneaky ways that it hides from ourselves if we're not paying attention. If you think you don't do this, before you give yourself a total pass, ask your kids. I do this, I've done this a lot with my kids. I'll ask them to give me their completely honest, candid answer. I'll promise them that, like, I'll buy dinner if I get angry or defensive or make excuses for myself. So I ask them for their honesty. I make the promise. No excuses. I'm just going to listen. I really want to hear your honest answer because I want to understand. I want to connect with you. So my fourth big error was that I made my worries Ryan's worries. In sharing the things that made me anxious and fearful, I only made Ryan's own concerns worse. When my son came out at 12, he was scared, confused, anxious, needing his mom to be with him in those feelings. I think so many of you, if you've come out at 24, I know my friend Grace had these same emotions coming out in your 60s. It's scary, it's confusing, you have anxiety. You need your person to be with you in those feelings. However, when Ryan came out to me, my reactions weren't about validating his feelings or empathizing with his feelings. I didn't take any time to process my own fears away from Ryan. My reactions for over 7 years were all about my fear, my terror of Ryan becoming promiscuous and having sex with other boys, my anxiety about Ryan becoming part of the gay lifestyle, my panic at the thought of my son walking away from his faith and then going to hell, my fear about what other people would think, my terror about what other people would think about our family. It was all about me. Again, imagine this.
Mom, I am thinking about coming out to Grandma, but I'm so afraid about what she is going to think.
Well, you know she's a lot older. She doesn't really understand all of this. She might really have a bad reaction. We don't want to upset her, right? I really think the best thing to do is just to wait and actually not tell anyone for a while until you're ready, okay? Until we've really prayed and waited on the Lord about this.
I guess, okay. I thought it wasn't that big a deal, really. I thought you'd be fine since Uncle Don is gay.
Well, yeah. But, yeah, definitely don't tell anyone, not until we're all ready. Oh, yeah, this could get really ugly. What if she tells Aunt Carol? You know how that side of the family is.
Oh, I guess maybe you're right. I don't want to upset Grandma or anyone else, and definitely not Aunt Carol. Then everyone will know.
So instead of helping Ryan, I succeeded in strengthening his own fears about coming out by implying that people would reject him. My own cup so overflowed with fear that I just poured them all out all over my 12-year-old boy. On top of that, rather than helping Ryan to develop the resilience to make choices for himself, I was teaching him to make choices based on what other people think, what I thought, what my husband thought, what the people at church thought. Instead of building confidence and security, I unwittingly was teaching him to doubt himself, that he couldn't trust himself. Or how about this one, when he was much older?
Mom, Devin and I are going to head over to the Seattle Center for Pride this weekend. I am so excited.
Great. That's so great. I'm so glad you're going. I'm glad you're going to see him again. But remember, there's going to be a lot of people using drugs and drinking, and you need to be careful. And there are always those homophobic people around, like in the news, wanting to hurt LGBTQ people. So you need to be super careful. We just got back together and connected with you after so many months of being estranged. And I can't bear for you to get hurt. I know you want to have fun, but you have to be aware of the dangers too. So, it's so easy for us to do this as parents, especially with the news and what things that we hear highlighted. It's so easy for us to feel like we're just trying to keep our kids safe. But not only did I miss the chance to hear what Ryan was looking forward to, a chance to connect with him over his excitement, but I probably just decreased his safety. So I want us to think about this. And if you're not a parent, if you're part of the community, think about it with someone you love that you really want to take care of. In our attempts to keep the people we love safe, we often tell them about danger. Danger that they almost always already know about. But what I've learned is that when humans are reacting out of fear, we are often actually less safe because the frontal cortex of our brain, which makes good decisions, shuts down. So why would I want my kids or my husband to be as anxious as I am? Actually in the same fight or flight mode that I was in or am in. Actually, we all want our people to think calmly and clearly, making accurate assessments and conclusions, right? This old approach communicated to my child that he needed to trust me to know how to be safe. Of course, I never said those things, but by continually telling him that I knew how he should handle things, I was definitely communicating it. So how many of you have ever warned your child or someone you love about a danger that they already know about? Yep. It's so human, right? It's so human. We do it because we love people. It doesn't mean we're not bad. We're not bad parents. We're not bad partners. I will do it when Rob leaves to go snowboarding or skiing. I'll be like, okay, just put your phone away. Don't text it while you're driving. Because as if he doesn't know that, I will try to remind him of a danger he already knows about. But when I did this with Ryan, I left him alone in his distress by trying counterproductively to keep him safe by telling him all about my own worries. Ironically, I made him less safe and less sure of himself, and I missed a whole opportunity to hear about what he was looking forward to at Pride. Another huge lesson I learned, and I think probably the one that has most transformed my relationships with my adult kids, is this one. I misinterpreted my kids' anger at me as rejection of me. Then feeling rejected, I moved away from them, leaving them alone in their pain and distress. When our youngest daughter, Larissa, after Ryan's death, she was really angry and hurt about being abandoned by me all the years before Ryan's death, and then again after he was gone. My reaction was all about me. Again, I forgot to be Larissa's safe person. I didn't validate her feelings or empathize with her feelings at all. My reactions were all defensive. I felt devastated because I heard Larissa saying that I was a bad mom, that I had failed her. I couldn't tolerate that, so I began defending myself internally by making her into the bad one. This is how it went.
Mom, you've been so preoccupied with Ryan for years. No matter what he did, he was always the priority. I thought that maybe, just maybe, after he died, you'd finally pay attention to me. But instead, you spent the last few years feeling sad about the death you, to be honest, caused yourself. And now you are writing about it and speaking about it. It is always about Ryan.
What are you talking about? I've done so much for you. We've never missed one of your tournaments. We've traveled all over with your club team. And of course I was sad. You didn't even want to let me grieve over my own child who died. Gosh, other mothers pull the covers over their head and don't come out for years. And now you dare to say that I am the cause of Ryan's death. I can't believe how mean you're being to me. I was in agony because she had just said what I thought were such awful things. I was devastated. I told myself, because of how mean she was, how much she hurt me, how unfair she was being, that she didn't want me anyway, and that she owed me an apology. We actually didn't talk for months because I was waiting for her to initiate repair, to start conflict resolution with me. I thought she clearly was the one in the wrong. During these months, which then turned into years of us not talking about the incident, I was focused on myself. I thought I was processing my own emotions, but actually I was just rehashing over and over again how I had been the victim, how Larissa had been unfair to me, a grieving mother, how she couldn't understand. I wish we could role play that over again. Maybe we will in the Q&A if we have time. Doing it in a way that nurtures secure attachment and deep connection. Maybe at the end we'll get a chance to do that. Here are other things our kids have said to us when they've had really big emotions. Lindsay once said, "You never listen to me." Riley once said, "My whole childhood was miserable." Larissa once said, "You have always loved everyone else more than me." Now, sometimes we hear our partners say these things to us. So-and-so is always more important to you. You love your parents more than you love me. You never listen to me. So close your eyes and imagine hearing those words said to you, or words similar to them. You don't love me. If you guys will be vulnerable and take the risk, I would love for you to say, what is the first thing you feel? Honestly, what's the first thing you feel? But you think it's pathetic. Ooh. Corey, I can count on you to be honest. Thank you. Think your child is being pathetic. Okay, what else? Defensive. Absolutely defensive. Anyone else? Oblivious? Like the kids are oblivious? Oh, that I was being oblivious. Oh yeah, that's true too. The thing is, when our kids say things like this, when they allow the big, messy emotions inside of them to come out to the people they believe love them more than anyone else, things can go sideways fast. I want to speak to the community in a minute about this, but give me a chance. We'll get there. I've often heard these sentiments expressed by LGBTQ kids about their parents. Maybe you've heard one of these. I feel like they don't understand me. I feel like I'm a disappointment to them. I feel like I'm the reason for all of their stress. I feel like I might be the cause of my grandparents' death if they find out. I feel like they are ashamed of me. I feel like every time I bring something up, they just get so upset. I feel like they are always blaming me for the problems in the family. And I feel like the church and their church friends matter more than me. I feel like Jesus matters more to them than I do. I feel like everything is different since I came out. And the big ones that are really hard for parents to hear, and they're really hard for parents to sit with and just listen to. I feel like life just isn't worth living. Or I know my parents love me, and this is terrible, but I just don't feel it from them anymore. If you are a child that has felt any of those things, if you're a child that has said these things to your parents and your parents have been upset, you're the children. It's a gift that you're being honest. It's such a gift. It's we as parents that have to do the work. We have to do the emotional labor here. So if you've heard any of those things as parents, know this. If any of you have heard those things, you are so honored and privileged. I've heard these things from literally hundreds of queer young teens and young adults. Most of them don't feel safe enough to say these things to their parents. So if yours has said something like this, you are so lucky. I am so lucky that my kids say things like this to me. It means my children trust me. I and you are honored to have a child who wants to share their feelings. But either way, when we hear something like, I feel like you don't love me, what's our initial gut reaction? Defensiveness. We do love you. I love you. Of course I love you. Once I said to my parents in front of our therapist, I feel like I've always been the bad daughter. And I was weeping. To which they promptly said, you have never been the bad daughter. That is impossible. We have always loved you. We love you so much. And here's a very long list of everything we've done to prove that. They felt threatened and they got defensive. And they quickly dismissed my feeling and my long experience as invalid because they knew how untrue my feelings were. They came back to me several years after that and told me in no uncertain terms that I had attacked them when I said that. But I was really just a grown child asking them to hear my feelings. But they just couldn't. So when my own kids use big statements to express big feelings, or they use hyperbolic words like always, never, whole life, completely, I remember my own parents dismissing and defending, and I remember that those are both strategies that are harmful for connection. I've learned to just note the initial defensiveness that comes up and to move along to the desire to understand fully so that down the road I can initiate repair. So I want to reframe the statements. So when I told you that Lindsay said, you never listen. I was very defensive. I'm like, I pride myself in wanting and being a good listener. But Lindsay's you never listened was actually a frustrated plea for me to stop acting obsequious and deferent, like simpering around her, and simply show up as my full self. She had been trying to tell me this. I found out what she meant by initiating a therapy appointment to hear more. Her big feelings were actually because she adores me and wants to be able to be completely comfortable and ourselves with each other. It wasn't at all what I thought. Riley's, my whole childhood was miserable, was actually just a plea for us to validate his experience as the younger brother of an older sibling who would come to hate himself, largely for reasons we had a lot to do with. Riley just needed us to listen to him, to empathize with him, and to grieve with him in ways we didn't do at the time. Larissa's, "You have always loved everyone else more than me," was actually a vulnerable question. Mom, do you love me? Do you even love me as much as my siblings? Even if they are more successful and more popular and have way more friends than I do. Mom, do you love me too? Here is what I didn't understand. I misinterpreted my kids' anger as rejection. When I think about relationships, I find it helpful to think about 3 movements we can make. Our oldest daughter is a psychologist, and she told me these back in the day, and I have thought about them. I think about them all the time. The first one is moving toward. When we attempt to connect with someone, when we attempt to get close to someone, we are moving toward them. When our kids are moving toward us, it can look like anger, pain, frustration. So we have to really listen and look for the feelings behind their words. One way I might be able to better explain this is to tell you how I tried to move toward my parents after Ryan's death. I really wanted to be close to my parents again after Ryan died, but when we told them that we didn't feel close to them since his death because of their lack of their own grief, they weren't really grieving, and we didn't sense any compassion for us. My mom started really crying and sobbing, and then my dad said, well, if I'm that bad of a father, I should just kill myself. And when I was a small child, I would come to them for connection and safety because I loved them. And I would express my big emotions with sadness or anger. And I think my feelings always made them feel bad about themselves. They didn't know how to handle my emotions. I think they believed, and they still do, that if they were good enough parents, their children would never be angry or upset. So I think a lot of us do believe if we're really good parents, we wouldn't make huge mistakes. If we're really good parents, our kids wouldn't be furious with us. And for me, with my big feelings as a child, I was regularly punished for having those big feelings, and definitely for talking about my feelings. So here's a positive example. When I assume that my children's intentions are good, that they are coming to me with anger because they love me, even when they're furious or they're really upset with me, and I simply listen to and validate their feelings, it's like magical. Their anger dissipates quickly and we get even closer. This happens every time. Every time they're angry with me or bothered by something I did or hurt by me, it ends up being a wonderful opportunity for building trust in our relationship. They know they can talk about anything, and I won't get upset, be defensive, or dismiss their feelings. So this is moving toward. So when I talk to Rob about something that I'm upset about, I am moving toward him. If you are part of the queer community here and you talk to your parents about how you feel, even if you feel abandoned or frustrated or angry, you are moving toward your parents. We we move toward each other when we want to resolve conflict because we value intimacy. I move toward Rob to resolve conflict because I value intimacy with him more than anyone else in the entire world. I move toward my son Riley when I ask him if we can watch his favorite anime show together. I move toward Larissa when I ask if something I said bothered her. I move toward Sylvan when I stop everything I'm doing to be interested in him, his relations with his family, his job, his obsession of getting the best deals on airfare. I move toward Lindsay when she mentions a toxic way that we related in our family when she was growing up. And I say, hold on, tell me more about that. I move toward her. I move toward Cam when I text him to see if we can find a time to talk, just the two of us, because I want to hear about all that is important to him that week. Can you think of a time when your child was angry or upset, but you might be able to think now and reframe it that they were actually just trying to reach out to connect with you? To tell you that they're in pain, that they're frustrated. When our kids do that, they do that because they love us more than anyone else. They want to be connected to us. So moving away. Moving away can look like not asking about something that makes you uncomfortable that they've mentioned, a new partner, a new interest, a comment about faith, is moving away when we just pretend that we didn't hear it. Moving away can be responding to perceived rejection by no longer calling, no longer making yourself as available or as vulnerable. Moving away can be using defenses to protect ourselves from further uncomfortable feelings. I don't want to talk about that. Change the subject. I did everything I could. Are you forgetting all the things we've done for you? We didn't know better. Know better, do better. Or focusing on issues rather than emotions. I moved away big time from my daughter Larissa when I made myself the victim and saw her as a perpetrator. I told myself that she had wounded me, that until she apologized, I wasn't going to reach out. So has anybody ever moved away from someone in order to protect yourself? I'm not talking about setting boundaries. Parents, have you ever moved away from your kids? What do you think your child might think when you move away from them? Can anybody put yourself in that situation? Laura. Not worth pursuing. I don't matter. If you're a child whose parents have moved away from you, feel free to join in with what you have felt when your parent disconnects from you. We're not doing this intentionally. I wasn't doing this intentionally to hurt my daughter. I did not realize I was so overwhelmed by my own emotions that I wasn't stopping to be self-reflective of what I was feeling, why I was moving away. And I wasn't stopping to mentalize what she was feeling as the person. I didn't actually know what was happening until a couple years later, I asked my oldest daughter, what am I doing? She just keeps being so lashing out at me. What is my role in this? Have I done something? And my oldest daughter said, Mom, every time Larissa tries to connect with you, you just keep stepping back. You keep stepping away from her. You need to move forward. You need to move toward her. She loves you. She needs to know you love her. And boy, was it like somebody took the blinders off. And I think it's easy. I did it in a huge way. I think when I mess up, I mess up big. But I think we can do this in lots of little ways. And again, it can hide from ourselves. So the next one is moving against. This one's tricky because parents often think their kids are moving against them like I did, when the kids are really moving toward. The truth is that all kids, no matter what the age, we need our parents' unconditional love and blessing. All children at their core love their parents and want to be connected to them. Even children like me who have spent their lives wanting to be connected to their parents, to my parents, and not feeling that connection back. Kids rarely simply move against us. Assume that kids are moving towards you and focus on not moving against them. So moving against someone can come out in subtle ways. In my mind, moving against means anything that undermines trust with my kids or my husband. It means trying to force them to take care of me by doing things my way, or by not making me feel my own uncomfortable feelings. So example here, when Rob and I perceived that Ryan was lying a lot as a teenager, and when we perceived Ryan's lying we perceived it to be manipulative, deceitful, and selfish. And we communicated our perceptions of Ryan's character, who Ryan was, in anger as we tried to control him more and more by taking away his privileges. We were moving against him, unintentionally, yes, but we were moving against him by accusing him of having the opposite of good intentions. We were blind to the fact that Ryan was lying because he knew he wasn't safe to tell us the truth. We were blind to the fact that we were undermining his ability to trust us by attacking his character, by trying to control. We weren't seeing that Ryan was hurting, scared, terrified of our rejection, and that he was, in reality, so very good inside. So moving against can look like using sarcasm to communicate a point, saying things that cause shame, like, what made you think that was a good idea? Or, what were you thinking? Saying things like, I told you this would happen. In other words, you are not smart enough to know how to handle your life, and it is not okay to make a mistake and learn from it. Any negative comment about who our children are, even if we think we are just joking. You always get yourself in such big messes. You'd think you didn't have any parents. Gosh, you can't take a joke. You're so sensitive. We know you're the sensitive one. What we say to our kids is so important. Dr. Becky Kennedy says that a parent's voice becomes a child's self-talk. And she also says the critical voices in our heads are the things we heard as small children. Whew. Think about that for a minute. None of us can go back and redo our children's childhoods, but we can be aware and intentional about this now. And we can repair. But that's another workshop. So here's a challenging example of a time when many of us are tempted to move against. What about moving against when we attack another person's character or intelligence when we are furious with them for the way they're treating our children? A lot of us feel like it's justified to move against someone who has moved against our children. And again, understandable? Yes. Helpful? No. So in the time we have left, I wanted to talk about well, let's do this. What situations, when do you feel like somebody is moving against you? Can any of you think of how somebody has moved against you? When someone's been critical or harsh? Yeah, Jen. Ooh, when they ignore something you express. Oh yeah. That can be, and you know what, we've got time, so if you want to share more than a word, I'll try to repeat it for the mic. Did you have something to?
Being really cold.
Being really cold. So, it's interesting, ignoring and being cold, I feel like that's kind of moving against and moving away at the same time. Maybe it could be like, we can think we're just moving away, but when we add coldness or ignoring what someone said, it really is moving against. We don't think we're being mean, but it sure feels mean. I know when people do that to me, I feel rejected. Ooh. So when you are lumped into a group and you're talked about as separate or other. Ooh, Laura, you want to say more about that? Why don't you pull your mask off for a minute and really speak up? So.
Yeah, I think this comes from just my own fear of being lumped into a group and misunderstood.
Ooh. When we're lumped into a group and we're misunderstood. Oh yeah, I hear you. Has anybody ever been lumped into a group and misunderstood? I know sometimes I hear that the reason I'm affirming is because I took the easy way out. And that I've only come to accept my child because, and the only reason I'm affirming is because I had a child die. I don't like that lumping. It invalidates my experience. It invalidates all the hard work. I know people in the community hear that a lot. You've taken the easy way out. You're not looking at scripture. That feels really crummy. Anybody else? Trans people are pedophiles. Ooh. Whew. Yeah, Grace, how does that feel? Yeah, that's an understatement, to feel bad. When it's a family member, yeah. Oh boy. Talk about being unseen, mischaracterized, lumped in a group you're not even in. What were you gonna say?
I was just going to say, and full confession, I've done this to others, but
Oh, of course.
when you feel as if you're supposed to completely change how you feel, but there will be no movement whatsoever on the other side.
Oh, ooh. When you feel like you are supposed to change how you feel, and the other person is not open, they're closed, they knew the right thing to do, they are right, you are wrong. Ooh, I'm glad you see, it's interesting, none of you are saying moving against is like, none of you are saying violence. Violence is moving against, clearly. None of you are even saying someone came at you with a verbal assault. You're saying, I'm all wrong. I need to do the work. I need to change. And you're all right. You've got the answer. Yeah. That's absolutely moving against. And yes, have we done that to other people? We do all these things. If anybody in here is thinking, I don't ever move against, right? Like, then we just need to be more honest, right? We all move against. Anyone else? I feel like, this is where actually, I don't really have a good closure for this yet. So I thought we were gonna be in a room and we could workshop this and do a lot more discussion. So I really would like to open it up for us to dig in. I have handouts of like the main points to pass out. And maybe, I tell you what, Grace, can I give those to you? And that way maybe that'll spur some questions and we can spur some discussion. Because, yes, absolutely. And Grace is reminding me about time to get to the 4:30 dinner. But can any of you, do any of you have any questions as you think about things I brought up that you might want for us to all brainstorm about a little bit?
I have one. You talked a little bit about how when we over-advise or try to control, right, like what that does to the relationship. And I'm imagining sometimes parents will say, but my child is still a child.
Oh,
And they
thank
might
you.
still need some direction. So how do we go ahead about really listening, really empathizing, and also making sure that you use the word support and encourage, and I'm just wondering what that might look like.
I-
Maybe we feel like we need to set a boundary.
Yeah. I think, Yes, let's pass the mic. Thank you, Bobby. So Margie was asking, what do I think about like if a child is under 21? And yes, we still have to set boundaries at times for safety, and they're under 18. Hi, Doran, come join us. I think, like for me, I'll just tell you what I feel like my instinct is. If I could go back and redo things over again, I wish I had brainstormed with my kids a lot more. I wish I had asked them what their solution to problems was. I wish I had made it a collaboration. I wish I had listened way more than I talked. I wish I had focused on validation of their feelings and what they're experiencing. I wish I had focused on empathy. And then I wish we could have, yes, I think I still would have set boundaries for internet use. I think I still would have set boundaries, but I would have empathized with the fact that boundaries kind of suck when you're a kid. They just do. And I think you can set a boundary for safety, but empathize with the boundary. Empathize that the boundaries can sometimes really feel crummy when you're 13. Boundaries can feel crummy when you're 17. And I think it's possible to set a boundary and do it as for a safety and still really empathize. Laura, what do you think? What works? Do you have any ideas that work for you?
I completely agree with you. I think involving the child, just involving the child in the decision-making process and helping them see, or helping them know that you trust them, as you said, like building ways for them to see that you trust them, and that you are, you consider their opinions worth hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their opinions are worth hearing. Mm-hmm. You're communicating to your child that you trust them. that you know they have good thoughts, that they're smart, they can make good decisions? How many of you felt like that as teenagers? Did any of you feel really trusted and really like your parents knew you would make a good decision? Like, when I'm trusted, I make better decisions. When I know that people believe in me, I rise to the occasion. Yes, when we know we're worthy, we act that way. Okay, anybody, let's pass the mic. Does anybody else have, you can come up with a comment or question, anything. Jen.
If your adult child asks for space, is that moving towards you? Is that withdrawing? And if you give them space, are you moving away, or are you moving against, or are you, respecting? I mean.
All right, Jen, I've had, thank you for asking that. It's really a personal one for me. Because, I've had 2 children that needed space. Our son Ryan needed space for about 14 months. And then our son Riley took about a year of space. And I consider that very much moving toward, because instead of when our child set boundaries, both of our sons, when they set boundaries with us, they did it because they valued our relationship. And something was not right. One of our sons did it to protect himself. And it was the best thing he could have done, because he did it to protect himself, and it gave me time to realize what really mattered, one child, and to do my own work. It forced me to do my own work. And then the other child did it because he was processing his own experience of growing up in our home during those years. And he was in therapy doing his work. And sometimes when we're first in therapy, things get messy. Things get, things fly. Things don't look so neat. And he did it so that he could figure it out before coming back. And I think because by that time we were able to see it as moving toward us, we made it, we let him know, absolutely, we trust you. Thank you for telling us. We'll honor this. Whenever you want to be in communication again, there's no pressure. We'll be here whenever you're ready. And then on a Saturday morning, when some appendix burst, we got a phone call. And soon after that, another personal crisis happened, and he was back in our home. And I think it was absolutely moving toward. Now, did it feel great? Oh, no. Right? Didn't feel good. Felt like I was losing another son. I wasn't sure I'd ever have him back. So I had to do a lot. Again, I had to do a lot of my own work. But again, that was good for me. And I trust my child. And it wasn't about me, it was about him trying to find healing. At the end of the day, it's not about me. It's hard though, right? 2 things are true. I know he was doing the right thing, and it hurt like crazy. Okay, go for it. Do you want the mic? Remind me of your name.
My name is Rocky.
Rocky, thanks.
So you talked about misinterpreting your kid's anger at you and moving away versus moving toward. And what I'm conscious of is that our kids are doing, they're expressing things to one parent maybe sometimes and not to the other, right? They have different relationships with the different parents. And so they might share some parts of their experience with one, and the other would feel resentful or left out.
Oh, yeah.
But then on the other hand, you might be the one who they're sharing things with, and your partner feels resentful or left out.
Absolutely.
And so I just wonder if you guys have sort of
Oh.
tips about like how you communicate with each other about where each of you are with respect to a certain child at any given point in time.
Oh, that's a really good question, Rocky. I think we've had this a lot, huh, Rob? And Rob, you want to answer? Because Rob is usually the person that feels left out.
Usually so. Linda's more
You want to take your
approachable.
mask off, love, so you, yeah.
Happy to. Yeah, usually the kids are more comfortable approaching Linda than I am.
Can you guys hear? Yeah, Rob,
Yet,
thanks.
when it's something like the kidney or his appendix burst, I got the call. When Ryan had an abscess, I got the call. So there's certain niches where, like, I need to talk to Dad. Or when Lindsay crashed the car, I got to talk to Dad. I need to know what to do. So I think that sometimes we need to make sure that our kids are willing to let us share with each other or not. And showing that respect is really important. If they tell me something, before I tell Linda, I'm going to ask. Usually it's kind of a no-brainer, but the other way, it's not true. Linda has had to not tell me things that they asked to keep confident for whatever reasons. They didn't feel safe for me to know about some certain thing yet. I think honoring their person as an adult, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I know this can be different at different ages, but we're more in the adult children.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that we've learned the hard way about this too, and that is we really try to honor the fact that Rob's relationship with the kids is his relationship with the kids. And if I see him doing something that I think might hurt connection, unless he invites my coaching, I shouldn't give him unsolicited advice. Which I am wont to do, believe it or not. And so if Rob, we've learned the hard way that, like, if Rob feels like sometimes I'll be having a conversation with the kids and with one of them, and Rob will be like, Linda. And now, see, our kids know this rule that they are like, don't triangulate mom and dad. So they know, because we can easily triangulate between mom, dad, child, right? Like, and it's really between mom and child, and then dad comes in, or it's between dad and child, and mom comes in. Or I can triangulate with my kids, go to my kids about another child. It's like all of it's unhealthy. All of it's not helpful for connection. So our kids will call us on it. Like, do you remember in the kitchen right before we left? And Riley was like, Dad, I'm having a conversation with mom. This is my relationship with mom. If mom is overstepping, I'll set a boundary with mom. Like, and I think he's kind of saying, like, trust me, I can set my own boundaries with mom. And so the two of us, now that said, we really try to respect each other and our own relationships with the kids. We both have our own processes, our own healing journeys. And I also think we work really hard to let whatever feelings we have with each other be okay. So if Rob feels left out, I want to allow him to feel left out. And not to say, well, gosh, if you would just listen better, right? That would feel really, really crummy. Or like if he says to me, well, gosh, Larissa didn't call you. Maybe she didn't call you because, wow, I heard the end of that conversation and you were doing all the talking. So we really try to avoid criticizing each other, and I can hear our therapist back in the day, remember Dudley? I can hear Dudley saying, Linda, let Rob's relationship be Rob's relationship with the kids. It's not about you. So I think, and what's beautiful about this is it's made our relationship all the better. So, yeah, I know we're rolling at the end here. And Grace, do you want to, if anybody wants an electronic version of the notes, contact me. I'll give you my email address. I'd be glad to send it to you. I also would love for any feedback how to make this better. What was like way too much? What was boring? What was like, what didn't work for you? I'd love feedback. And thanks you guys for letting me just be with you and share with you what I've learned. I really appreciate it. It's really an honor.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much.